Hey Fitheads, today we talk with Alexandra Zatarain of 8 Sleep about sleep fitness, which is one of the most important things for performance, yet it is completely underappreciated.
Yeah, it was so cool. We talked a lot about like how much sleep you should be getting, how to fall asleep, how to wake up, and what the number one most important thing that contributes to a good or bad night's sleep is. I guess you have to wait to find out.
Ah!
Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Hey Fitheads, today we have Alexandra Zatarain. Am I pronouncing this correctly? Awesome. And
Yes.
she's with 8 Sleep, so we're going to talk about recovery. Heck yeah! Full on the hardcore recovery. Let's get some serious sleep. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
So if you want to give the Fitheads a background on 8 Sleep and what you guys do, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we are a health and wellness company focused on sleep fitness. We use technology to help people sleep better. We truly believe that in order to improve your sleep, you need to first understand how you're sleeping. So we start from giving you the data about how you sleep every night. And then we build the proper environment also through technology so that you always sleep at the perfect temperature, you wake up more refreshed. And we do that through our signature product, which you may have heard about. It's called the Pod, and it's a smart mattress. It's the only mattress of its kind in the market that is aggregating the seamless sleep and health tracking with the environment optimization so that you can eventually sleep much better than you could in any kind of dumb mattress out there.
Dumb mattress.
Dumb mattress.
I feel so attacked.
That's what I'm on right now. There's nothing like something in between. I guess it would be trying to track without it being in your mattress. Like, how does it being actually embedded in the mattress compare to what I've got going on here?
Yeah, no, we love actually seeing also other sources of data because, so let me give you some background to start. So the company started because Matteo, who's my husband and one of my co-founders, had sleep struggles. So he was an athlete growing up. He grew up in Italy and he was a tennis player and a skier and race car driver. And so he's always kind of like a very athletic person. Then he became a lawyer. And so in his life, he always kind of had this interesting relationship with sleep, right? Where like, yeah, when you're an athlete, you talk about recovery, but way back, there wasn't really a lot of conversation about it. Then as he became a lawyer and then an entrepreneur, sleep wasn't really one of his priorities. And eventually he started developing some issues with sleep. And so this was maybe like 8 years ago, before we started the company, he started looking into sleep. And the first thing that he realized was that by using some of the wearables at the time, which this was before products like Whoop or Aura or the Apple Watch, he was trying to track his sleep and he would either not be able to wear the device during the night because he had to charge it some nights, or the devices were not necessarily designed with sleep in mind. I think nowadays there's been obviously a lot of evolution. There are products that are much more seamless that you can wear, but that was his personal experience. And so what he thought is, why don't we just put some of these sensors in the bed so that there's no way that you miss a night of your data unless you're traveling. And also, because of the larger surface of the mattress, we can put many more sensors than maybe you could put in a smaller wearable. Again, this was many years ago. We started the company 6 years ago. So the technology was very different. And there's a lot of innovation that has happened now in wearables, just like the ones you just have shown, which have been able to compress a lot of similar sensors into a smaller surface. Now, the beauty of having it in the mattress still is that fact that it's seamless. You don't have to do anything. It tracks up to 2 people on the same mattress if you're sharing the bed, or if you're just a single sleeper and you're using the entire bed for yourself. And it builds what we call, it's like a blueprint of your health. So it's tracking your presence, your movement, your respiratory rate, your heart rate, your HRV, very similar metrics to what a lot of these wearables track without you having to wear anything. But it's also complementary to what the wearables are tracking. Like, there's no reason why you can't use both. You are using your wearables during the day and they're fantastic. And then you can aggregate that data in a platform, say Apple Health or Google Fit, and see your pod data, your wearable data. And it's all this like aggregated blueprint that is actually how it starts becoming valuable, is the trend data over time.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, as I'm comparing these two, they're still giving me very different data. And I mean, obviously, like you're saying, like the sensors here versus here, and so it seems like over the surface would be even better as opposed to.
It's different. Yeah, it's a very interesting challenge, actually. And we've had to do a lot of work to improve, even just to build algorithms for what we do. Like some of our users who, maybe your listeners and followers in social, maybe they got our early product like 5 years ago, they can tell like how much of an improvement it's been, because just the ability to use the sensors that we have, which are health grade sensors, but then have enough data, and then train algorithms and then continue to refine them. And we constantly do comparisons internally with other wearables or with other health grade devices, or we do tests with sleep clinics. It just needs like constant work. And I think each of us as independent companies are doing that, whether it's for a wearable or for the sensors in the bed. And I think that is where there's still a big opportunity. Like, how do we start creating a standard? Max, who's my other co-founder and our CTO, talks a lot about that. There's not a de facto gold standard for measuring particularly things in sleep, because a lot of the research that has been done until now has been made in sleep clinics or academic settings with few subjects at a time, with different ways of labeling the data. And how do you consider REM sleep, NREM, deep sleep, like all these kind of classifications. And so there's not yet that one standard that everyone follows and everyone agrees on. And so that's where some of these like discrepancies sometimes come from. And then obviously there's still challenges in terms of the sensor technology and its ability to really pick up things and the classification of the data, which all companies continue to work on.
Sure, yeah, it seems like it would be incredibly hard, specifically HRV, because that's like such a fraction of a second number over a long period of time, like changing, that, I mean, that we're finally getting to the point to be able to measure that is incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get what you're saying about how there's not like this one standard, because right now, I mean, these devices give me like a score, but is it based on, should I focus on deep sleep or REM, or is it my HRV? And I imagine, yeah, that's like what we're trying to land on, is like how to make sense of all of those things into one number so I don't have to think that hard.
Yeah, that's actually something that we talk a lot about at the company, is that there's this opportunity for either one of us companies that are already in health and wellness or a new company to come up and make sense out of all this information. Like, what should I really be focusing on? And it's not just, we see it in sleep. It's not just how you sleep and what you do in sleep, but what did you eat? And did you work out? I've started to use, I have my levels here.
Yeah. Love it.
And I see those sorts of correlations and the different changes that you make in your lifestyle. And so there is that huge opportunity still in some sort of coaching or guidance that is multi-platform, so that we can understand what to focus on, which also changes over time. Like some people, you want to focus on diet for a little bit, maybe deep sleep later. Like it needs to change as your life changes too.
Right, and it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about stuff you've learned about sleep specifically in going through all this stuff? Because I feel like a lot of people, I mean, this is the world, I got to work. And like you said,
Sleep when I'm dead.
Sleep when I'm dead. Yeah. And I think a lot of people put it on the back burner, but I'm assuming, I'm guessing doing this, you've probably learned a lot about the importance and how you can, so talk a little bit about that.
And I'm a really good sleeper. So people ask me that a lot.
So jealous.
I sleep like 9 hours every night, not kidding. Like probably sometimes even 10 every single night. Like I would say I work and I sleep, and maybe I exercise like 3-4 times a week, and that's it. That's all I do. What I have learned is the number one thing for you to really achieve sleep fitness, is how we define it, and stay sleep fit, is the distance schedule, which is what most people I think have a hard time on. Just setting that schedule and sticking to a bedtime and a wake up time is going to give you much higher quality sleep, because our bodies are, they have that clock. And so if you just go to the biology of it, it's going to work out. That is kind of, I would say, the number one rule, basics. If you start somewhere, just starting with that schedule. I see that works very well for me, even if, when I used to travel and would move between West Coast and East Coast. sticking to the schedule on the East Coast just made things so much easier for me whenever possible, or even when you readjust at a new place. Once you adjust to the new location in the new time zone, creating a schedule in that time zone is super important. So it's like babies. I think that's the number one step.
Just like big babies.
Big babies, just give them a schedule.
I struggle with this because I find myself working until late at night. Like, what is the difference between like keeping a consistent schedule so I go to bed at 3 a.m. every night versus like sticking with the sun, going to bed earlier? How do those compare?
Yeah, so obviously, ideally, you should be going to bed earlier. There's a lot of studies that talk about the best hours when you should be resting, right? And that should be before midnight. You should be in bed, like ideally by like that 11 p.m. Like you should be in bed. But there are people who are different.
I don't know when the last time I've been, I mean, other than a nap, obviously. I don't know when the last time I've been in bed before midnight.
This is the first time I've seen 9 a.m. in years, by the way. Ironic that it's to talk to you.
But it is interesting because we think about that a lot at 8 Sleep, and it's very rare that we would push people to do things that just feel like unnatural or unconventional to them, because the last thing we want to do is create you anxiety. That is definitely the last thing you want to create. So if you go to bed at 3 a.m. and you feel like that's been working for you, but you're still managing to get your 7 to 9 hours, maybe it's better that you stick to that rather than trying to like go to bed at 11 and force yourself, and then you can't really fall asleep and you get into this like crazy pattern that just, you know, throws a wrench into your schedule. So you have to make some compromises. For us, it's we can't just push you to live a different life than what you like to live or what works for you. The time that you sleep is really important. So as long as you try to prioritize that and try to get enough sleep, then you can start fitting it into the schedule differently. I think the challenge is a lot of times people go to bed at 3 a.m., but they still try to show up at the office at 8. And if you do that for long periods of time, it does obviously hurt your health.
Well, then how long can
right?
how fast can you make a change? Like if I'm going to bed at 3 and I want to go to bed at 12, should I budget that like a week, a month?
No, it takes a few days. So like within a week, you should be able to get into a new schedule. Some of the tricks, like if you want to start going to bed earlier, is to try to sleep less for a few days because you'll get tired earlier, and then you'll start going to bed earlier, and so you'll fall into a new schedule. So it is, again, going back to babies, like baby for sleep training, which I've never done because I don't have kids, but how you would get them used to like that schedule. And sometimes, you know, you can't let them like fall asleep in the middle of the day. Otherwise they won't go to bed at 7 p.m. and they'll end up going to bed at 9, and then the next day will be a disaster. It's the same for adults. And within a few days, you should be able to make a change. The effect of the sun is interesting, what you were mentioning, because it is the healthier way. Like if you start adjusting to trying to go to bed earlier, you'll be more naturally aligned to what's actually happening with sunlight, especially in the summer. So it's a great time to try to sleep train yourself. In the winter, it's much harder because also like the mornings maybe are darker. So then it'll be harder to wake up. So yeah, trying to like follow that natural pattern. There's obviously a lot of impact into how you've had your schedule for years. Like if you've only been doing the 3 a.m. thing for a few months, maybe easier to get out of it. But if that's how you've lived your life for years, it may take longer.
Have you seen any impact on, what about blue lights, screens and stuff like that? I mean, again, I feel like I've heard like a bunch of old wives' tales.
Gotta wear those weird glasses and put on night shift.
Yeah, exactly.
I use the glasses at times, definitely, but I mean, I'm a great sleeper, so I fall asleep in like 5 minutes. But it depends. It does start becoming more hurtful if you're spending, like if I go to bed at 10 p.m., then maybe I'm just spending 2 or 3 hours in the night in front of my computer, compared to if you're going to bed at that 3 a.m. and maybe you've spent like 6 solid hours in the night in front of your computer or more. So how do you balance that is really the question. And then it depends on the direct light. Is it really your computer or your phone, or is it the TV? Like it'll make a difference. But anything that you can do to help your sleep to help you fall asleep fast is good. So if you have the glasses, wear the glasses. If you can, stop using those devices for an hour before bed, or maybe just don't use a computer, maybe have your phone with night shift. Like there's all these trade-offs that we can make, but we follow that same rule at 8. So it's like, I'm never going to push you to like not use your phone in bed. Like, come on, like we live in 2020. Like we're all scrolling through Twitter and seeing what's happening in the world at night. So it's not realistic that you're not going to use your phone. So find something else that is going to at least make it less hurtful for your sleep.
It sounds like the opposite of Bulletproof, where like Dave Asprey's like, no, you have to turn off your Wi-Fi at 9 p.m. and put a little sticker on your TV's light by the power button to make sure that doesn't get in your eyes and completely change your life.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. I think it works for some people. I certainly do a lot of those things, but it's you can't just preach to everyone to follow your life. We hear from a lot of parents too that they're like, oh yeah, wait till you have kids, and like that's not gonna work. So it's not realistic. I can't tell some parents to just have 8 hours of sleep when they have a baby in their home.
Yeah, it must be tough. Like you're sort of positioning yourself as like we're not a advice company, we're an information company. We're just giving you the information, you do with it what you want. But for someone like me, I'm like, yeah, but what you're biting your tongue and I want you to yell at me.
Yeah. Well, it's hard because then people talk about that anxiety. You've probably read about the orthosomnia and like all these scientists talking about the anxiety that comes from looking at your sleep metrics, which I think is just like, yeah, it happens for some people, but we can pretend that these trackers are what's causing us anxiety. Like we have some other underlying things going on.
Yeah.
Some place to put it.
So we are very careful with that. Like we're like, okay, we will give you the information. We advocate for sleep fitness. Like we love to talk about it. We want people to prioritize it. We want people to invest in it. But at the end of the day, we're realistic. Like you're not going to entirely change your life from one day to another. It's going to take time. It's going to take you like opting into this lifestyle, just like you would do with nutrition, like you're talking about weightlifting, like it takes, it's a habit that you build. And that's what we call it, sleep fitness. It's like, yeah, it's like fitness. You need to work on it every day. And sometimes it's not going to be as good. And sometimes you're going to be great. It's a process.
Well, you talked about sometimes you'll get 10 hours. But also more than 10 is like bad, right? Which is like,
no, I don't think
so surprising.
Really slept more than 10. Yeah.
Well,
I'll like wake up eventually.
I've heard that it's bad to get over. Oh, she's so good at sleeping. She is no more. What happens if you sleep too much? Like, or is this just a correlation causation thing where like you just found people that sleep more than 10 hours and actually they're depressed and like obese and whatever?
Yeah, I think that there's more like correlation than causation. It's generally, people that will have some other condition or some other illness and they're oversleeping. There is the case where people that are burnt out, that for a period of time, they need more sleep to recover and they're actually able to reconcile sleep for that long because just like they're physiologically like burnt out and their body needs it. But it'll probably not be for a very long stretch of time.
Okay. Well, like I kind of talked about how I go to sleep late, and I found this in art school that all of my fellow students were like they would always be creating at that late hour, and like looked into this, like your frontal cortex shuts off and you're like less judging yourself and in that like kind of sleepy state. Like, do you guys think about that at all, that now you're making everyone like so high functioning that they can't paint anymore? Clearly you've been asked to this before.
The brain will adjust, but it is an interesting metric to see the loss of creativity that we're causing. But it is true. A lot of my friends are more in like arts. I studied communications in school, and so a lot of them are, are into film and they work in TV production, and it's just like the hours and how they operate and perform, it's so different. To me, it never worked. I'm just like, I can't stay that late and be productive and creative. But there's a lot of information that talks about like the genetic part of it. Like there are some people that like genetically will have that predisposition to be like the night owls, but it's a small percentage of the population. Like it's not actually good for most people that think that there are night owls and that they can function. But you'd probably have to get some sort of genetic testing to figure that out.
Yeah, actually, that was one of my questions. Like, are you guys working on like looking at gender or heritage or DNA. Like, can you take my 23andMe info and like put that in the mattress because I was born a night owl?
That'd be fun, actually. That's not something you've thought about incorporating it into your recommendations. That'd be pretty good.
Yeah, well, when you first spoke about the company, it was more general. Like, yes, you didn't just open with like, we make this mattress. So are you thinking about broader things like that?
Yes, for us, the pod is our platform. So we talk about it like it's our iPhone, right? It's the signature product. It really encompasses like all of the opportunities of what we believe a mattress should be doing for your sleep. It should be comfortable, it should be at the proper temperature, it should be waking you up at the right time, it should be gathering the information about your sleep and your health, and that in the future it can do many more things. And that's what keeps us exciting, like being able to build that product that goes into people's homes. But then we do think about the entire package. Like, what are all the things that we could do and our technology could do, both like the hardware, but also the software and digital? And what are some other companies doing that are interesting? So if you go to our website on 8sleep.com, you see that there's other products that we sell that are not just our products, but there are third-party brands, because we think about it as there's a sleep fitness lifestyle. What are all the other things that you could use to help you fall asleep faster, to help you recover your muscles before you go to bed, to help you stay comfortable, to, you know, whether it's supplements or it's a massage gun for your muscles, or it's a weighted blanket. That's kind of the universe of 8sleep. And we want to make sure that we're thinking about all of it, and that we're not just, you know, making one product and shipping one product, because people who buy into 8sleep, you know, when they have hundreds of beds that they could be buying, they're doing it very intentionally. They want to get sleep fit. They see in 8sleep that fit into their lifestyle. And there's much more that we could put in front of them than just the mattress.
Yeah, when you're talking about supplements, like melatonin, ashwagandha, magnesium, I don't know. I've experimented with some things, and sometimes I'm like, is this doing anything? I don't know. What does 8sleep suggest?
It's different for everyone. That's why the data is so important in the end. That's what we like about tracking your sleep and your health seamlessly, because then you could go and see, okay, I did this. I, you know, took melatonin for these number of days, and look at what happened with my sleep. Look at how much faster I fell asleep. Or maybe it didn't work, but maybe it worked for my partner. Like, it's going to be different for everyone. And so the pod is that platform. It's giving you the opportunity to see whether you're improving, or it's the same, or it's maybe worse for you. And then you can use as many other products as you like. We have our favorites. Those are the ones we put on our website, but there's so many others. There's like so many companies doing so many cool things that you could be trying, as long as they're good and healthy and, you know, validated, to see what works.
Yeah, I'm curious what you found with levels and connecting that to your 8sleep data, just like personally.
Yeah, what I find so interesting is what happens while I'm sleeping, depending on what I eat for dinner. And when I eat dinner closer to bedtime, we're leaving like that gap. But something that I noticed for me, unfortunately, is that both like pizza or pasta are like, give me pretty bad spikes, particularly when I eat them at night. And especially if that's all I have, like if I didn't pair it in a dinner with some protein and that was like my only dish, then during the night I'll have some other glucose spikes. Instead, if they were properly, you know, you had maybe like fish and a pasta and a salad, it'll still behave like pretty normally through the night and avoid any other spikes while I'm sleeping. And then the other interesting correlation is if I do wake up in the middle of the night, and Matteo sees this a lot because he's also a big levels user, and he wakes up a lot in the middle of the night, he will see that correlation with like the spikes. We're still trying to figure out if they're caused from him waking up, or if the spikes are causing his wake ups, which would be interesting.
Yeah, interesting. I've noticed that too, and I'm like, did I have like a dream where I was stressed out and working hard, and like that's cortisol that made me get up? Yeah, it's cool, like seeing them connect and trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and trying to see that point of like, it's a correlation, is a causation, like what is actually happening. But that's what's so exciting about using for us the data and like being able to track like your body, because hopefully eventually I think the dream for all of us is to be able to have some answers.
Indeed. Oh, can you talk about the temperature thing? Because that seems like a huge part of the mattress.
Yeah, so the reason why we lean so much on temperature as the way to create the perfect environment is because it is the number one thing that gets in the way of a good night's sleep, other than people's raising minds. So most of us have issues with temperature while we sleep, and it is because temperature is actually so critical for you to be able to fall asleep in the first place. Like it is part of that, like your circadian cycle and how your body falls into sleep and then the different sleep stages. And what has happened with modern life is that we have these mattresses that tend to get hot. They're just like absorbing all of this, dissipating. We have our pajamas, we wear socks, we have rooms that are not naturally ventilated. And so everything that we've been doing has just gotten in the way of the natural process of our body regulating our temperature so that we can fall asleep and stay asleep. So that is something that we learned very early on when we started the company, talking to some sleep doctors and academics, and we were fascinated. We're like, oh my God, like if we can manage to regulate temperature in real time based on people's data, then we could potentially create that like optimal environment, and you will fall asleep faster, sleep deeper, wake up more easily. So it's like this enhancer. And so that's what we focused on. And that's what the pod is best known for, is that ability to heat and cool, changing in real time based on, you know, before you get in bed, it'll be to the temperature you wanted. Once you fall asleep, it'll adjust because it knows that you fell asleep. And then before you wake up, based on your schedule, it'll change temperature as well, all following what would be like these moments of the night that your bed temperature should be adjusting to make sleep easier for the temperature your body is going through at any given time.
That's incredible. It seems like, I don't know, whenever I'm making like health and fitness adjustments, and always like going back to, or like just a paleo diet, right? It's like we haven't evolved fast enough, and so we're going back to like what we used to be like in the caveman days. This seems the opposite of that. Like, no caveman had like this like minuscule changes in temperature throughout the night. You're sleeping on a rock. So yeah, it seems like counter to a lot of the mentality around looking at our past as the answers.
So it's interesting because I think about it the opposite. I feel like it's actually getting us, it supports the natural rhythm that your body will already go through and the fluctuations of temperature. Whereas if you don't have that, everything else that you have in your bedroom is getting in the way of the natural flow of temperature. And the main thing that gets in the way, it's a dumb mattress. It just does. No, it really is. And it's the reason why the mattress industry always talks about their mattresses cooling, and they don't cool shit. They don't have the technology to cool. They really don't. But the reason why they talk about it is because it's the number one problem. It's natural. Your body, like, we're balls of heat. And this bed is absorbing it through the night. You're becoming hot. Eventually, you stick your foot out because that's what you do, because that's how you regulate your temperature. And so what we're trying to do is say, hey, you still want to sleep with your comforter. You want to you want to do all these things. There is a bed that can make sure that you're not overheating, which is the number one problem. And so it makes temperature. It creates a more natural temperature environment in that microclimate under your covers, which you can't achieve any other way. And to your point, like when we were sleeping in the rocks, your body was doing that. There was nothing getting in the way of it.
Yeah, I guess we were sleeping outside.
Yeah, and then our bodies are really good at, like, they would do that for us, you know. But if you think about it, the cavemen, right? Like they would still gather close to each other or cover themselves or go close to the fire, because there is such a relationship with like the especially the skin temperature and your ability to fall asleep. So if you're too cold, you may not be able to fall asleep, but as soon as you fall asleep, you need to cool down. So there are all of these like micro changes that maybe were easier to make as you were in an environment that was, you know, you could be close to each other, and then you'd be without the cover or without the fire, and like how like your body could adjust more easily. Instead, when you're under the microclimate, you're over a dumb mattress, this thing's just heating, like just like a linear exponential curve of heat over the night, which is not good. Like there's no way it's going to cool down in the middle of the night to help you stay asleep.
Yeah,
Can
and
you-
there, like before you guys, it was always like set your temperature to 68 degrees in the room, but then you put a mat or a duvet on, and that has no effect, right?
Exactly. Like it's still important to try to keep your room cool, but to your point, like your microclimate under the comforter is still going to be hot because our bodies are so hot. And then if you share the bed, it's even warmer. We've done a lot of visualizations with like a heat camera, like a infrared flare camera, and you can see what happens when there's two people in the bed on a mattress that is not ours, like without our technology, and how that body heat from one side starts just like spreading to the other side, and you can see it visually. And then when you put the pod and the technology and it's on and there's like the cooling, you see how it's just like isolated, like each person's on their side. And then what happens is that the water in our technology is absorbing that heat instead of just dispersing it and removing it from the mattress, which is how you stick to the temperature that you really want.
Can you talk about best practices or best stuff you've seen for waking up? I know that there's like weird alarm clocks that are like, oh, we'll figure out when you're out of your what cycle of sleep, you know, blah blah blah, and a smooth, slightly ever so slightly increasing noise versus my dog jumping on my face. You know what I mean? What have you seen to be the best?
Ideally, I think we would all want to wake up without an alarm, right? That's when you feel like, okay, your body's ready.
You do, obviously.
I do, obviously.
Ah, come on.
Because I'm like so sleep trained, honestly. Like I come on, I sleep 9 hours. Like at some point I have to wake up. Like my body's just going to be like, hey, maybe you need to go to the restroom. Like it's going to happen. But if you want to get there, even if you sleep less, the schedule is the way to go. That's why the number one tip I always give is like find a schedule and stick to that schedule, because you're going to find it easier to fall asleep and easier to wake up. If you need an alarm, what we like are actually something that we put into the pod pro that we just launched this year is the vibration technology. So the reason why most people hate the alarms is one, because like maybe they wake up when they're like deep sleep, but also like it's very disturbing. Like it's almost like, you know, the sound alarms are like loud, and like it's just not a very nice way to wake up. And so we went and explored what are other ways that we could do it. And when we asked our users who had been using our products for years what they wanted, people said, well, why don't you make the bed vibrate so that I can wake up more naturally, more seamlessly? And the second benefit is that then I don't wake up my partner. And we had never thought about this. This came up like maybe like 3-4 years ago. We're like, wow, that's pretty interesting. Like we've never thought about a bed that's going to shake you awake. But we launched it with the Pod Pro, and people love it. Like people that use it really love it. They stick to it. They use it every day because they find it to be a more gentle way to wake up, because it's with that kind of soft movement, and you can determine the intensity. And if you just want to use it for one side of the bed or both. In our case, you can also pair it with what you're mentioning of like that smart, like the detection of when you are in a lighter sleep, so that it's just easier. And there's certainly, I think a lot of the wearables now do it, right? People love, even Fitbit used to have that alarm that would like vibrate on your wrist. It feels more gentle than the sound that's going to be blaring from your phone at a pitch that's not very beautiful and nice to your ears in the morning.
Yeah, when you're talking about the different stages of sleep, I just recently learned from one of your guys' papers actually that you want sleep continuity. Can you talk about that? Like maybe I didn't learn enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important that you like finish each of your cycles of sleep, right? So like interruptions in the night when you're like uncomfortable because it's getting hot or it's getting cold or there's noise or anything that's like waking you up, then you're almost like restarting. Like you go through it every 90 minutes, right? Which is why like if you're only sleeping, there's also like all the science, again, like what we have now based on what's been studied about sleep, about the fact that if you sleep only for 2 to 3 hours in the night, it's not like you're going through, you know, enough 90-minute cycles to make up for the deep sleep that you need. Is you need to sleep like more than a certain amount to get the quantity of deep and REM sleep that you really need to be rested and recovered. So that's why there's like a minimum amount of sleep that's recommended. Otherwise, it's not that you can almost like compress it and make up for it in less hours.
Well, that Uberman sleep schedule, the people claim that they can. Have you heard of this?
No.
Oh, it's like you sleep 20 minutes every 4 hours, and you have to stick to that. And the idea is that, like, after a few weeks of doing this, like, you will just fall asleep immediately for those 20 minutes and wake up and go immediately into deep sleep, or, you know, the correct cycle.
Yeah.
And so you end up sleeping significantly less amount. I mean, it's like completely antisocial because you can't miss your 20-minute nap. So
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. You know that I've never looked into like whether they measured it and like proved that they're able to get the same level of recovery.
But
I know that, yeah, it is definitely very antisocial. So I wonder how people would do it. But
well, now's the time.
Yeah, right.
If you're doing it for a short period of time, it may work. Like if you're like testing it, I don't know if it's sustainable. There's a friend of Matteo, which is one of the first people that he spoke to before starting Eat Sleep about this whole topic of sleep, and he sails around the world alone. And so he had to go to a doctor that taught him how to get like this sort of schedule that you're describing, where he can only sleep for like 15, 20 minutes at a time every like few hours because he's alone. And so if like something happens on the boat, like he'll die essentially. And so I'm sure that people can get trained to do it and could do it, but I don't know if you could do it like for 10 years. You know, I wonder what happens.
Oh yeah, you can do it for 10 years and then you immediately die. But you feel great for those 10 years.
Totally worth it.
Wow. Well, I've also heard about this thing where you we used to naturally wake up in the middle of the night to tend the fire or whatever that that hour.
That was another schedule, yeah.
Yeah, that humans naturally fall on that, or was it just that we were used to it then?
I think the humans honestly have such capacity to get used to things. So that's what's most surprising. There's like people that have night shifts, right? Or how parents adjust when they have kids. It's incredible to see how we can adapt. There's probably just not been enough research and like the scientific study into the impact of all these different sorts of schedules, which would be fascinating to do, because maybe there is a different way to sleep. And Matteo talks about this a lot, where he has this crazy idea of like, maybe one day we'll be able to know about sleep so much and be able to optimize it to perfection based on what every individual needs every single day, that we may be able to compress it. Maybe you will be able to sleep, say 6 hours every night instead of 8, and at the exact same level of recovery at every single aspect that you need to live your life and still be healthy and not shorten your lifespan. And what he says, like, that would be fascinating because we could all get years of our lives back where we don't have to be sleeping.
That's what Dave Asprey claims he's doing right now. He's like, I sleep so efficiently that it's only however many hours or whatever.
Yeah.
You do that for everyone.
You can do that for everyone.
Such a productive society we would be.
and less angry.
or more time for the arts, you know, maybe.
Yeah, there we go.
We shouldn't work more, but we would do something else, like something more fun.
Have you guys found, what sort of connection have you guys found with exercise in terms of falling asleep and also in terms of performance?
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of research that talks about like performance after nights of sleep deprivation versus nights of enough sleep. Again, a lot of amazing studies, but they've only been done with a few people at a time, which is what makes it hard to just draw any conclusions. But what we do know is that it's very personal. It's like everyone is going to be different, which is why the individual data is so valuable. The one thing that tends to be that tends to apply to most people is the fact that the exercise and getting your heart rate up is going to have an impact on your body's temperature. So that is the one thing you do want to be conscious about. If you exercise too close to bedtime, your heart rate's still going to be going, it's going to be high, and your core temperature is going to be a bit higher. And so you need to find a way to just bring that down so that you're not, in that kind of state of rush and like overheating. But then it's going to change for everyone. Like some people may be able to cool down pretty quickly. Some people may be able to like take a cold bath and like calm down, or, it's going to change. you almost need to test it. We have a lot of people in our company who will go into like these crazy experiments and like test and be like, well, if I exercise, 1 hour before, 2 hours before, what type of exercise, what did you eat, not just the exercise, what was your wind down routine, can you adjust the temperature settings in the pod to potentially help you wind down much faster. It's all these sorts of interesting combinations that you could run to see what would work best for you.
Yeah, I'm interested to test this out. I also have one probably completely self-serving question. What happens if you don't get any deep sleep? Is that even a thing? Because my aura is telling me that I go several days with 0.
No.
I get different data from my Whoop, so I don't know.
How long are you sleeping for?
8. I'm in bed for 9 hours, sleeping 8, 7, 8.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't make sense.
Okay.
Maybe there's some issues
apparently
with
my
like
finger's
a
not
sensor.
asleep, but the rest of
Yeah.
me is.
Your finger's
Just like
raving
playing
the whole
piano
night.
in the middle of
Yeah. All right, well, interesting. Yeah, because every night it's like you had a ton of REM sleep. You're probably making up for not enough REM sleep lately, which is, if I had only REM sleep, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. Do you have, well, no, that wouldn't make sense with the finger though. I was going to ask if you have like pets or something in your bed.
Yeah, no.
But no, with your finger, like they should be able to detect all of that.
All right, well, good. I've just been concerned since I purchased this that I'm slowly wasting away and never going into deep sleep. All right. Oh, but there is something about getting too much REM, right? That like that's based on how stressed you are in the day.
Oh, I don't know if it's, again, like to me, I never want to generalize because like how did they come to those conclusions? Like who did they look at? Who did they study? What was the baseline for those people's information? That's what's kind of a little bit frustrating about the sleep science that we have to date. It's like everyone is so different.
And it's a science that's combined
they're...
with minimal data and a ton of what your mom told you growing up.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. There's a lot of things that we talk a lot about, and I think actually Whoop is doing something interesting around that. Like the fact that so many of the studies have even been done with men because of the hormonal impact of our cycles as women, and so we are underrepresented into a lot of these conclusions that there are around sleep or HRV or any of these metrics, right? And so you start thinking about that and say, hey, like when we think about temperature and we see it with our own data, it's like males and females will have very different preferences into their bed temperatures. And so when we talk about a 68-degree bedroom, it's like, what the hell? Like, that's really cold for me. Like, that doesn't work. But we're all been told to keep your bedroom at 68 degrees if you want to sleep well. Well, who studied that? Who said that that was right? Like, how do we not put into people's minds that there's like one perfect way to sleep, but that rather we should be finding the thing that works for us, which will change over time, just like we do with what we eat or how we train. It's the same thing for sleep.
I have a question about, well, basically, do we need caffeine? Like,
or do we just love it?
Is it just like
we just love it?
It's just a band-aid on these dumb mattresses? Or
are they like in collusion to try to like keep us in this world?
Like, is it normal for your energy level to dip throughout the day, or is it just that like we're all doing a poor job of sleeping except you?
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm like the perfect person, but I did used to not take caffeine at all. Probably I started like 3 years ago. I don't know. I may have like this random thing in my life where I just stumbled into doing a sleep company, but I was actually also a really gifted sleeper. But technically with
you didn't want to call it Be Like Me?
Yeah, I don't want to say that, but
the new company name is I'm
need
Awesome.
The caffeine. But caffeine, what it's just doing, it's like it's you are building that adenosine through the day. Like you are getting more tired, like we are. But caffeine is just like a way to block that receptor that's telling your brain like you're tired. That's all it's doing. It's not making you less tired. I think that's what we all want to realize. It's not making you less tired. It's not making you more energized at all. It's just blocking your brain from knowing that you're tired. So then that makes you think, okay, what am I really doing? And what am I really using this for? And so, yeah, maybe the conclusion is like, you're tired.
Yeah, like a pain, something that blocks your pain doesn't stop the wound.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
makes you forget
Like you're
that.
still in pain.
Yeah, it's still, you're still in danger.
Yeah.
Whoa. Ugh, fine.
Mind
I'm
blown.
done
It's
with
2 a.m.
caffeine today.
But hey, we love it. Like I started drinking coffee because it's a very nice ritual. I like it. And I just don't drink it in the afternoon. Like, again, it's life. Like we can't just all be robots.
But we're
Well,
trying. That's kind of the whole point.
But we try and we put
Yeah,
all these
we're all
things and we
trying.
have
It's
smart
like-
beds.
One day.
Speaking of substances, we always ask about people's opinions on alcohol too. The more I track, the more I get information telling me that it's a very poor idea to drink. Ugh.
Which is shocking.
What? Stop telling me. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm guessing 8 Sleep has a stance on this, or perhaps not.
It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone to their own. But I did stop drinking like last April. And I still do very rarely, maybe I'll do like a glass of like champagne every 3 months because I'm like out somewhere and I'm like, well, not, but you know, I'm not out anywhere these days. But I stopped drinking and just like felt really good. I'd be curious to see now that I started using my levels to see what would happen if I was drinking that. Do you drink alcohol and have you noticed anything?
Well, Max and I did a beer mile wearing them. Yeah, it's surprisingly, like, when you drink, your sleep is just like, what? All over the place. When you drink with your levels are like, it could go up, it could go down. Like, it's not as predictable as you would think. You would just expect alcohol to, like, give you poor glucose control. But there's, like, a balance there where you don't necessarily see a spike depending upon what you're doing around the drinking and what you're actually having.
And what
Max
you're
had
drinking.
whiskey. What happened to your whiskey?
I had a night where I tracked a bunch of I did corn, just straight, no mixer, no anything, and nothing happened at all. And I'm like, is this thing on? Like,
Is it working?
I'm drinking there's a lot of data here, and like nothing happened. But like beers weren't that great. Beers gave me a couple spikes, but not during the beer mile. Remember?
Yeah.
That was bizarre.
So you had a beer and then you went walking for a mile.
Well, you chug a beer and then run a quarter mile and then chug a beer and then run a quarter
Oh my
mile.
God.
So it's 4 beers in a mile. And he just like, just nice and flat.
Yeah, but I did have beer without running. Imagine that. And there was a spike. So I think it was the combination. You talk about like, it isn't just one thing. It's a combination of what you're doing. Like you were talking about earlier, like pizza with salad versus pizza by itself is huge difference. And so I think for me, I just have to drunk workout all the time. That's going to be my new move, I guess. But the straight whiskey shots were just completely flatlined, and that was horrifying, but also exhilarating.
Now that's just what you have to do every night. And
I suppose.
you'll be fine.
Have you found?
But the same thing with alcohol for sleep is similar to exercise. It's about body temperature. It's like that is the thing you want to be mindful of because it's different than what you see with glucose, right? Like with sleep, there are other factors that would get in the way of sleep, and like temperature is the biggest one. And so that's why even when you talk about the heavy foods, it's like, well, it's digestion and like your body is still at work, and so it's like it's awake. The heavier your meal, the more alcohol, like you're keeping your body awake, doing all these functions of metabolizing everything you just put inside of it.
So if I drink heavily, my heart rate's racing, right? That glutamine rebound or whatever, and I'm so hot, I can just crank down my 8 Sleep.
You could
and
try.
What you're saying is you've solved hangovers because I will sleep better when I'm drunk.
Well, try that and let me know how it goes. But
Okay,
that is something that we see people who sleep on the pod and use the temperature regulation and they fall asleep faster and they get more deep sleep. Like there is going to be an effect, of course. Like maybe not every night because you could be doing things in your lifestyle that are getting in bed. But you can try and find like what's that perfect setup based on how your body's feeling and what you did that day.
Okay, super important question. Stomach, side, back. How do I optimize? Which one?
Hanging
So we did
upside
look
down in
at
my
data
closet.
one time. We haven't tried that.
Oh yeah,
But-
actually Bulletproof, they talk about draining your lymph nodes or something and like raising your head above your
Yeah.
knees.
Is it the one where there's like the wedge, the kind
Yeah.
of yeah. I tried that for a little bit. It was interesting. I didn't feel any difference. I didn't see any difference in the data, but it wasn't bad. Like it was interesting. The sleep position, we did look at it a while back in terms of the actual data. We're like, okay, can we really see a difference? And there was a difference in sleep quality for people that were sleeping on their left side. Which then if you go and look at like a lot of the research that has been done, they talk about the same thing. And apparently it has something to do with like how just like our organs are positioned in our bodies and like the stomach shape and facilitating digestion and things like that.
Oh my God.
So
if,
wait, left
I
side
gotta
was
put
good, left
levels
side
on
was
my
bad.
right side.
on your left side. Yeah, I have my levels on my left, which doesn't make sense. I should have thought about it.
Are you right-handed?
Yeah, but I also
Yeah,
sleep
so
on my
you're-
stomach, which is terrible. That's probably the one
Really?
big fault I have for my sleep. I sleep on my stomach.
So wait, I'm sorry. Left is you want
Left
to
is
sleep on your
good.
left is sleeping
Yeah.
on your left side
So
is
weird.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy. So not back. Huh. Well,
No,
there's like
so
a small.
the
Good.
back is the best position for back pain, for mitigating back pain. Like that is, the best position you can be in. You have to watch out for your pillow. It can be too tall because then you're not aligned. And then the second best are your sides. And then your stomach is the worst for back pain because you're putting like so much pressure on your lower back. In terms
Yeah.
of what we saw for sleep quality, then that's different because maybe, the back pain is like once you wake up, you feel it, but it's not necessarily getting in the way of how you're sleeping in the middle of the night.
I've also heard that you shouldn't use a pillow. Is that?
Yeah, we've seen a bit of that too.
I've
I
started
think it's
doing it.
tough.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Well, I'll continue a quest to become a robot. It's fine. I sleep on a rock now.
That is perfect. Haystack.
It's not as uncomfortable as you think, Max. If you're
It's
on your
no
back
pi-
and kind of tilt your head back.
Oh, you're on your
like
back.
everything
Of course.
aligns. Yeah.
That's the
Oh,
problem. Is
but then
I sleep on my side, and so
Yeah.
I'm like, how in the hell,
Yeah,
what I mean?
you're like
maybe.
this. Yeah.
Well, whatever.
I have to try that. I haven't tried the no pillow thing, but definitely conscious about the height of the pillow.
Huh.
What's the weirdest
Alright.
sleeping position? I mean, I'm assuming you've watched a lot of people sleep. Not that you're a creep or anything, but what's the weirdest sleeping position you've seen? I'll go first. I knew somebody who slept like, like they were in a coffin. It's
That's what I was gonna
terrifying.
say.
And you're like, are you a vampire or are you dead? Oh no, oh my God,
Yeah.
you're alive. Perfect.
We talk a lot about the company, so everyone in the team has a pod and everyone talks about sleep. And there was someone in the team that once shared that he sleeps like this. And we're like, are you a vampire? Like, this
Ugh.
is so weird. He's like, yeah, I go to sleep like this and I'll wake up like this. Like I'll just like stay like that all night.
No, he
That is
dances in the middle of the night and then gets back in. Wow.
Maybe he
Interesting
goes up
too,
and
because-
plays piano like you, Specs. That's why your finger never falls asleep. Sleep piano.
Sleep piano. Oh, it's really hard to play the piano in a dream. Sidebar. I'm not kidding. Every time I do, I suck at it. It's weird having that connection.
Aren't you not supposed to be able to read in your dream or something like that?
Or tell time.
Oh, wow.
You're not supposed to be able
Repeating
to.
patterns.
And something about dreaming, like you're not supposed to be able to process information, like you can't read a sign or you can't read a book or something like that. And if you ever are reading a book in your dream, that's how you know that you were kidnapped by a evil supervillain and you're actually in a
God.
virtual reality machine because you can't read in your dream. FYI.
I've never thought about that.
Noted. Okay. So wait, the mattress knows when I'm sleeping on my side versus back versus front?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Okay. Just curious.
We've done it by, we've run at times like these mini studies with a group of our members that are in this kind of almost like beta group called the 8 Labs. And so we'll correlate like information that they provide outside of the platform. So they'll tell us like position, sleep, number of pillows, types of comforter, stuff like that with their actual sleep data. it doesn't yet know what position you're on.
It's so funny adding pillows to science. Okay, wait, why are you guys called 8 Sleep? Is there something around that?
The hours of sleep, the hours you should be sleeping.
Oh, duh. Okay, got it.
I get
And
this all the time. Don't worry.
I'm curious about one more thing. That have you seen any change in our habits during COVID and lockdown with like stress and like not being social? Is there like some trend that you've collected with your data?
Yeah, we shared a little bit of this with some journalists. There was the beginning of the whole lockdown. We saw an increase in time slept. I think it was a little over 20 minutes, about like 24 minutes on average per night. And what was interesting is that it was an article that came out of I believe Fast Company, and they grabbed our data and they compared a couple of issues. I'm getting if it's like Fitbit and things, but like it wasn't just us. We were all seeing the same trend, which was fascinating. It just kind of makes you so excited to see like, okay, it's not just us, and maybe like you're saying, maybe there's some random issue, but everyone was seeing similar data across the board, across the entire country. People were sleeping more. The conclusion there was like, people are probably not like commuting, obviously, and so they're staying in bed a little longer, and they're actually asleep for a little bit longer than they would normally. Then what we saw, and Matteo actually tweeted this interesting graph a few days ago, specifically looking at New York City trends and how as the lockdown receded, then people started again like dropping in their sleep time, their sleep quality. And so just like how it has kind of fluctuated as things have changed. It's almost like you go back to life, go back to your old habits. But we are pretty sure that for those of us that will continue to work from home for a while, the absence of the commute is going to be beneficial for sleep, because we will be able to gain even 20, 30 minutes more every day. That ends up becoming pretty significant.
Have you heard of the concept of like you're not supposed to work in your bedroom, or have you ever heard of that, or is that I feel like I'm just asking you all these old wives'
That's
tales.
like no, it's good. It's like a sleep hygiene thing, where you're like your bedroom's like your sleep sanctuary, and like you should think. Sorry to keep going back to babies, and I don't have babies, but that's what they do right with babies. Is like you don't put them to play in their crib or their bed, because that's what they should connect to, just like falling asleep. It's the same for us, but I mean, hey, if you have a small partner, you have to work from your bedroom, like that's fine. Maybe just don't work from your bed.
Well, speaking as someone who previously was a baby, I appreciate it. But I think that's sort of the problem that I would imagine that's sort of frustrating for you guys, is that there are all of these like old wives' tales that people are like, well, I heard the blah, 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 and like these new recovery pajamas, that's going to fix your sleep. And you're like, yeah, totally. Hold on. I'll just buy it. You know what I mean? So it must be hard for you guys to sift through what's real and what isn't, and sort of have data to back it up, or actual facts.
That is the key, is the data. It's like, can we all agree that we need to show some proof to what we're doing, to what everyone is doing, and it applies to every aspect of health and wellness. And how do we find those platforms that allow us to show the proof? And it is going to require data. So that's why we're such like big, we embrace that. It's like, hey, track it and see what's actually doing for you before you just like disregard it or adopt it quickly. And then it was just a scam that didn't really do anything for you.
Yeah.
And you're also
I have
fighting
some sleep
like
pajamas.
Do you
Active recovery pajamas.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you made that up, but I also want them now.
They have like micro ceramic weaving.
Yeah.
Buzzwords. They got buzzwords
sense.
in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who knows what it is?
But hey, if they feel good,
They feel great. And I look
there
great.
is a huge part of comfort with sleep. So if they feel good, and they also have this thing that makes you think better.
Who knows?
Huh. Well, yeah, and I was just trying to say that you guys are not just fighting these like false information wives' tale things, but like the cultural belief that like sleep is not important. Like it's cool to care about your diet and working out, but like the first thing I opened with was like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Like that's
the grind doesn't stop, right?
Yeah, which is
But sleep should be part of the grind.
Shift
Yes.
culturally. So thanks for doing that. It wasn't cool back 6 years ago whenever Matteo was doing it, but it's finally getting to the forefront.
Yeah, yeah, it is a big part, and that's what I specifically do at the company and marketing and brand is. It's not about selling our products; it's about making sleep fitness a real movement. Like
Mhm.
we welcome other brands to be sleep fitness companies, to talk about it, to evangelize for it, because we really believe in it. And so whether it's our products or someone else's products that are helping you get there, like we want people to prioritize sleep, to think about it, to work on it, to understand it. That is how we actually measure our success as a company, is like, are we making people sleep fit? Like we ask our members every 30 days, like, is the pod helping you sleep better? That's all that really matters in the end of the day, because then obviously that will result in a business and people recommending it and people buying it. But that is really true. Your point of like a priority is people caring about sleep.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. It was awesome to hear all your insights.
Of
Where
course.
can the fitheads go find a pod and all the other awesome stuff you got?
8sleep.com. So any place on the internet at 8sleep or 8sleep.com is where we have all of our products and the pod as well.
And an awesome blog. Like you have some really like easily digestible things that are fascinating, answering questions that I didn't even know I had. Love it.
Yeah.
And it's 8sleep, EIGHT, but also digit 8.
You guys got both? Of course you
very,
do.
very savvy of you, I have to
SEO.
say.
You never know.
They know what they're doing. They got 7 sleep too. Those are for the idiots that aren't getting enough.
That'd be a smart campaign, actually. You just gave me a good idea.
All right. Thanks again. And thanks to the Fitheads. If you haven't yet, please go rate and review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe.